So, you're sitting there researching how to ride motorcycles, trying your best to learn everything you can ahead of time, and you start to see myths that have you rethinking exactly how some stuff that you thought you understood worked, but now you don't know.
Sound familiar? Look, I totally get it. If you guys are brand new to riding motorcycles, there are a ton of things to learn and understand, and I think because of that, it ends up creating a lot of these myths that just float around the internet that I get asked about all the time. So, in today's video, we're going to be busting 5 of those myths for you guys. Now, these myths are common misconceptions that a lot of motorcycle riders think, but don't worry, today we're going to be setting the record straight so you guys can stay safer on the road. Whether you're a new rider or have been riding for years, this is going to be vital information that you do not want to miss. Let's get into it.
But before we get to myth busting, we gotta thank today's sponsor, Dairyland Insurance. Whether you're new to riding or have been riding for years, having the right insurance is crucial. That is not a myth. Dairyland offers comprehensive coverage tailored specifically for motorcyclists, giving you peace of mind no matter where your ride takes you. You guys click that link in the description to get a quote and see how Dairyland can keep you protected. By supporting them, you're supporting this channel to make more videos like this. Now, let's get into myth number 1.
All right, my friends, to start it off, we're going to talk about myth number 1, and that is countersteering.
Many new riders think that you should steer a motorcycle just like a car. If you want to go right, then you turn your wheels in that direction.
Now, for those of you out there that have never ridden before, I can totally understand how this could be confusing. I mean, most people ride in cars and trucks before ever trying motorcycles, so why wouldn't those same principles apply to bikes? But when it comes to riding motorcycles, especially at higher speeds, this type of thinking can be misleading and dangerous, which is probably why it's a myth. By the way, I can guarantee you guys 100% of the people that are thinking countersteering is a myth are people that have never ridden a motorcycle before, because the moment you guys get out here on a ride and get above that speed threshold, this just happens. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Here's why countersteering works. When you're going fast, the wheels of your bike act like spinning tops or gyroscopes. They resist change to their direction. By pushing your handlebar to the right, moving your front tire to the left, you create a small lean to the right. This lean helps you turn right. So, when you push right, you lean right, and the bike turns right. It's all about using that gyroscopic effect and the forces at play when you're moving quickly.
Now guys, look, I remember when I started riding and this sounded absolutely crazy to me that I needed to point my motorcycle front tire in the opposite direction of the direction I wanted to be going. But I promise this is a thing. I'm going to show you guys in person so you can believe me. The reason I think this is a myth is because countersteering actually only happens above a certain speed. And I know that makes the whole situation even more confusing, but don't worry, this is what I mean. So if we slowed the bike down to under 10 miles an hour, I want you guys to notice when I rotate the handlebars and the wheel to the left, you notice the bike is going in the direction I'm pointing. Okay, so the wheel is pointed to the left, the bike is going to the left. Now, when we go over a certain speed, and from what my testing on the 450, it looks about 11 to 12 miles an hour. So if we're going 15, if I do the exact same action and I move my handlebars and the wheel to the left, I'll go in the opposite direction. So watch. You notice how the bike is tipping in the other direction now? Handlebars are still going in the same direction. All right, I'm gonna do that one more time. I'll slow down and I'll show you guys. So we're gonna go under, what is it, 10? All right, under 10, we're gonna move the handlebars in the right direction and we're gonna go right. Okay. Now we're gonna get up to a little faster, a 15, 16, and we're gonna move those handlebars in the same direction over that way. And then motorcycle leans and we go in the opposite direction. How strange is that? So that little threshold is going to be different for each motorcycle, from what I can tell at least. On the 450 SS here, if you are going above about 13, you're countersteering. So I'm pointing the wheel in that direction and the bike is going in that direction. And I'll do it one more time just to show you guys. All right, we're going under 10. I push the handlebars in the right direction the same way, and now we're going right. So there's that little transition point that happens, and I think that's what causes all the confusion with countersteering. Now, one thing I can assure you guys is while this might sound weird as I'm describing it right now, once you get on a motorcycle and you start going, this is not something you think about. It's kind of like breathing. I don't sit here and think about, oh, I better keep breathing so I can stay alive. I just breathe. My body just does that. A motorcyclist, you just steer, and the bike goes in the direction you want it to go. And this is odd to say, but you naturally just start picking this up. It's normal. You don't, a motorcyclist doesn't accidentally go in the opposite direction of where they want to go. You know what I mean? This is just something that becomes very normal. It's second nature, and it just takes some time getting riding, and you'll get it down. So if you're confused from the get-go, do not worry about it. It gets a lot easier to understand once you're actually on a motorcycle.
Sorry guys, I know this one was a bit long. All the myths aren't this long, but this is a big one I see all the time, so I wanted to make sure this one was clear. Moving on to myth 2, the front brake is dangerous. Some riders avoid using the front brake because they think it will make them flip over or lose control.
The truth is, the front brake on your motorcycle provides the majority of the stopping power on your bike, and while you're riding, you should use that to do the majority of your stopping.
If you actually take a look at the vast majority of motorcycles, you'll notice that the front brakes that are equipped on most bikes are much more substantial than the ones on the rear. The reason most of these front brakes are so much bigger is due to what happens on your bike when you start braking. As you squeeze the brakes, the weight of the bike will actually shift forward, which in turn lightens the amount of weight on the rear tire. That also means even more weight is put on the front tire, allowing it to work even better because it's handling more of the weight of the bike and the rider, giving it more traction. Now, can the front brake be dangerous? Of course. If you grab the front brake lever and pull it all the way to the grip as hard as you can, trust me, you're going to have a bad time. Everything in motorcycle controls and riding is all about being smooth with what you do. When you go to use the front brake, even in emergency situations, you should never yank on the lever. You should always do a steady pull of the lever and progressively give it more pull. Naturally, as you pull that front lever and your front brake engages, it will take more and more pressure to pull it in farther. This will slowly shift that weight of the bike to the front tire, giving it more traction, which it will need to slow you down more and more. When it comes to braking properly, the good rule of thumb is that your front brake should be used for 70% of your stopping power and your rear brake should be used for the other 30%. When I ride, I'm more of a 90-10 sort of guy because the rear brake just really doesn't do that much.
All right, so I'm going to show you guys this stuff in action. Behind me, I have a cone set up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my braking cone going the exact same speed, and I'm going to use different combinations of brakes to see which ones will stop me sooner. I'm going to start with a rear brake only. I'm then going to do front brake only, and then I'm going to do both of them combined to show you guys the differences and how strong each of these brakes are. Let's get to it.
As you can see, even when I used the front brake only, I used it smoothly and came to a quick stop. Remember, the front brake isn't dangerous as much as it is powerful. Use it smoothly and you will be absolutely fine. Coming in at myth 3, and that is leaning into turns is dangerous. Apparently, some riders out there worry that leaning too much will cause them to slide out and lose control. It's a common fear, and for those that may be brand new or have never ridden before, I totally get it. You're on this heavy machine, you're coming up to a corner, and the only contact between you and the ground is this little 1" by 1" square patch of rubber on the front and the back of your bike. How in the hell is that going to keep you from washing out and sliding across the road? Also, as riders, we're leaning and getting closer to the asphalt, so this myth I can totally understand.
The first thing we got to come to terms with is that leaning is an absolute requirement for riding a motorcycle because of the forces placed on it. Let me show you guys an example. Most of y'all have ridden in a car, right?
In a car, if you take a right turn, you feel that pull to the left of the car, right? Well, your motorcycle goes through these same forces. They're called centrifugal force, but because we don't have another set of tires on our left, if we take a right turn at speed and don't lean, we don't have anything to counter that force that is going to be applied to the motorcycle. This is why we lean the bike into the turn. We are trying to balance the forces that will be trying to push us off the road as we come into a turn and try to navigate that turn. Trust me, once you are on a bike and you're coming into a turn and you start leaning the bike over and do it correctly, everything should feel in balance and safe when you are leaning your bike over a far degree. Lean is also going to be directly associated with the speed you are going through that turn. The faster you go, the more force will be applied to your bike, which means you will need to lean more to counter that larger force. This is actually a good thing. It means if leaning off the bike is scary to you, all you need to do is ride slower and you will need to lean less. This is how you should be riding anyway, and slowly progress into going faster and in turn, leaning more.
So, to wrap the section up, is leaning your motorcycle into a turn dangerous? No, it's absolutely required. Can it be scary if you're coming into a turn too hot for your skill level? Yes, but that's a conversation for another video. So guys, I'm gonna apologize ahead of time because this myth is one that gets my blood boiling, so let me compose myself. This myth is the one where riders tell new riders that you should get a motorcycle that you can grow into. Do you know what you can grow into when you're riding a motorcycle that you have absolutely no business riding? An early grave when you decide that I'm just curious about what the throttle feels like if I give it a little whack. Then you do that, you have no idea what's going to happen with that kind of power, and then you get a backflip around the side. Sorry, I told you guys, I got a little ahead of myself. This whole idea is just an efficiency play, right? The whole thing of getting the motorcycle you want, even though you can't really control it now, so that way you can avoid having to get all the slower bikes. And yes, I am using quotation fingers because this is part of the stupid verbiage around these low CC bikes that drives these dumb decisions. Then outgrowing it after you've ridden it enough, and then you gotta sell it so you can get the bike you really want. Just go straight for it. Heck, don't worry about having to waste all that time and all of that money that you're gonna waste on the slow bike. Not gonna lie, I hate myself a little bit just for these words coming out of my mouth. Guys, this is simply not how it works. A smaller CC motorcycle is gonna be a much better environment for you to be practicing your skills and learning how to ride. And those skills will directly translate over to the bigger, more heavy, but more powerful motorcycle if and when you even decide to upgrade to one.
Hell, you might get a small bike and really like the amount of power, the lightweight, and ease of use and stick with that. When you put yourself on a bike that is better for learning the techniques, you are setting yourself up for learning so much faster than a guy that starts on a bike he's got to quote-unquote grow into. You know why? Oh, of course you don't, because you're watching this video. If you put both of y'all in the same situation, you ride the same amount and start at the same skill level, you are going to learn faster because you don't have to worry about nearly as many factors as he does. Smaller CC bikes are far more forgiving when it comes to the power, so if you accidentally give it too much throttle before you fully release the clutch, you are less likely to do a backflip. Most smaller CC bikes have less weight, so they are easier to maneuver, making it easy on you to ride and dial in that body position. These are just some of the huge benefits of starting out on a lower CC bike. Here's one thing I do see all the time. The guy starts out riding on a bike that he can grow into, doesn't have enough experience for the bike, and this style guy typically starts riding well above his skill level real soon. Next thing you know, he gets into a terrible accident, which statistically is most likely his fault. I doubt he invested in good gear, so his body gets totally screwed up, and then he stops riding because I'm sure he blames something other than himself. This is a guy that won't last long in this community because motorcycles don't give a shit about your ego. Also, just for the record, low CC bikes generally have an amazing resale value because the largest segment of riders coming into the market has always been new riders. Guess what kind of bikes new riders need? Low CC bikes. So there is always a market for them.
Sorry guys, I know that got a little heated, but look, I just want you guys to become lifelong riders. And the way to do that is start out low and slow. get a smaller CC motorcycle, learn everything you can from it. And then once you've learned everything, then if you need it, upgrade to that bigger, more powerful motorcycle. Do not listen to these ego-driven idiots. Whew, okay, let's get to the final myth.
Our final myth is myth 5. Engine braking is bad for your engine. For those of you that might not know what engine braking is, it's what happens when you let off your throttle while riding and don't pull in your clutch. When you do this, you're no longer giving the engine fuel to keep firing, but because the rear tire, which is connected to the engine, is still rotating as you're moving, it makes the engine continue to spin. This creates a drag effect that slows the bike down. Some bikes have more engine braking and some have less, but without getting too technical, that's what it is. So the question is, does using this method to slow your bike down actually harm your engine? The easy answer to this is no, it doesn't. As long as you aren't downshifting into a gear that is so low that it sends the revs into the red line of the bike, you're okay. You guys gotta remember, the transmission and the clutch of a motorcycle are mechanical objects, and they don't have any preferences. They do their job regardless of where the forces that make them move are coming from. Also, your motorcycle's engine is built from the factory to start and go straight to the red line and maintain that. So how could a little climb in the revs when engine braking hurt it? Now, if you're worried about other functions not working properly, there's no need. Even while engine braking, your bike's oil pump is still running and getting oil to all the parts that need lubricating. The radiator is keeping your engine cool, so the only difference from regular riding is that you aren't supplying your engine with that new fuel to keep making those little explosions happen, which actually will help in cooling your engine since it isn't having to fire. There's also the benefit of using engine braking on long descents because by using it, you're not relying solely on your brakes, which helps them not overheat. Using this technique can also slightly save on wear and tear of your brake disc and brake pads. However, something to be cautious of if you do use engine braking a lot to slow yourself down is that it will not light up your rear tail light, alerting other riders and more importantly, car drivers who are probably not paying attention that you're slowing down. As a rider that spends a lot of time engine braking, I always make sure I either slightly engage my rear or my front brake, not enough to make me slow down, but just enough to trigger my rear brake light. Now, if you're not into doing that, there are some awesome products like the Brake Free on the market that will help drivers behind you tell if you're slowing down or stopping. So the way this works is it actually has sensors inside of it, so it can tell when you're coming to a stop, and when you are coming to a stop, as you can see, it will light up, and it has 3 different lighting options, whichever one you kind of feel best works for you. It's also mounted on the back of your helmet, which is a much higher place than your bike's brake lights, which makes it more visible. For safety products, this is a must-have for riders.
And guys, that's all the myths I have for you guys on this episode. If I missed some myths that you guys wanted to see, drop them in the comments down below. And if there's enough of y'all down there with some good myths, we might just have to make another episode. Share this video out to somebody that you think needs to get some of these myths that they think totally disproven. I appreciate you guys watching that video. Make sure to put OC in the comment down below. That stands for outro crew. It just means you made it to the end of the video, and it means I love you a little bit longer. Guys, I'm Chaseontwowheels. You guys go out there and ride safe, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Later.